The station called Aurelian Drift floated between three-star routes, quiet and bright like a thought held too long. It was not owned by any single species. It belonged to agreements, to patience, and to the slow work of understanding. For many races, it was a place of ambition. For humans, it was still a place of learning. Ethan Hale did not come to the station to be seen. He came because someone needed to keep the systems running. Every morning cycle, he walked the same corridor, past glass walls that showed stars stretched thin by distance. He wore a plain uniform, darker than most, with no symbols except a small human emblem near the collar. He carried a data slate under one arm and a tool kit under the other. His steps were steady, unhurried. Around him, the station moved with quiet importance. Delegates from dozens of worlds passed through the halls. Some floated. Some walked on limbs too many or too few. Some moved with assistants, translators, or personal fields that bent light around them. Ethan nodded when others looked at him. He never stared. He never rushed. Most did not notice him at all. That suited him. On the upper levels of Aurelian Drift, where gravity shifted gently to match visiting species, conversations were careful and long. Decisions were never rushed there. This was where alliances grew slowly, like roots under stone. And this was where she spent most of her time. Her name, when translated into human language, came close to meaning one who chooses the long view. No one called her that out loud. Among the station records, she was listed simply as Ambassador Sarilith of the Lume Accord. She was taller than most humans, her form graceful but not fragile. Her skin reflected light in soft patterns, like dawn across still water. Her eyes held depth that made some delegates uneasy, as if she were not only seeing them, but also remembering many others before them. She was important in ways that did not need explanation. Many desired her presence. Some desired her influence. Others desired her favor. A few desired her for reasons they pretended were cultural but were not. They brought her gifts, ideas, compliments shaped like policy. They spoke loudly around her, carefully around her, or endlessly to her. She listened to all of them. She rarely answered. Ethan first noticed her because of a schedule conflict. One of the station's environmental harmonizers on the upper ring had begun to desync, creating subtle pressure changes that affected Lume physiology. Nothing dangerous, but uncomfortable. The request came down to maintenance, tagged low priority but persistent. Ethan volunteered to check it. When he arrived, the chamber was quiet except for soft ambient tones tuned to Lume hearing ranges. Sarilith stood near a wide observation window, her attention on the stars beyond. Two aides waited at a respectful distance. Ethan paused at the entrance. He waited. One of the aides noticed him and shifted slightly. Sarilith turned her head, slow and unalarmed. Her eyes rested on Ethan, not sharply, not dismissively, just fully. "Yes," she said in clear, careful standard. "Maintenance," Ethan replied. "Pressure harmonizer check, I'll be quick." She inclined her head once, permission without ceremony. Ethan crossed the room quietly. He knelt beside the harmonizer panel and opened it, hands steady. The device hummed, a little off rhythm. He adjusted the alignment, recalibrated the feedback loop, and let the system settle. The pressure evened out. The tones softened. Sarilith's shoulders relaxed by a fraction. Ethan noticed. He did not comment. When he finished, he closed the panel and stood. "All set," he said. "If it shifts again, log it and we'll adjust further." She studied him for a moment longer than necessary. "You did not announce yourself," she said. "I didn't want to interrupt," Ethan answered. "You did not ask who I was." "I knew," he said simply. "And yet you did not alter your manner." Ethan considered that. "You didn't ask me to." That seemed to interest her. He waited, ready to leave. He did not fill the silence. After a moment she said, "Thank you." "You're welcome," he replied and turned to go. As he left, one of the aides watched him with narrowed attention. Sarilith returned her gaze to the stars, but something in her focus had shifted. Over the next several cycles, Ethan's tasks brought him back to the upper levels more often than usual. Systems always needed adjustment when so many species shared space. Gravity fields, light spectrums, temperature gradients. Each time Sarilith was there, not always near him, sometimes across the room, sometimes already leaving. Sometimes seated in quiet discussion with others who spoke too much. She never summoned him, she never stopped him, but when he entered she noticed. Other delegates noticed too. They noticed that she listened differently when the human was nearby. That her attention, so difficult to hold, did not drift as easily. That her posture changed, subtle but clear to those trained to see it. They assumed strategy. They were wrong. Ethan did not seek her out. When spoken to, he answered politely and briefly. He did not linger unless needed. When conversations grew tense or crowded, he adjusted systems and left. Once, during a long assembly session, a seating recalibration was required mid-discussion. Ethan arrived quietly, tools ready. As he worked, voices rose around him, layered with urgency and intent. Sarilith watched him from across the chamber. When the recalibration finished, the seating arrangement shifted slightly. One seat moved closer to another, not by design but by necessity. Her seat ended beside his station console. Ethan noticed only when he stood and found her closer than before. "Apologies," he said. "Temporary alignment. I can correct it if you prefer." She looked at the new arrangement, then at him. "No," she said. "It is acceptable." She remained there for the rest of the session. She did not speak more than usual, but she listened. Ethan returned to his console, eyes on his work. He did not glance at her again. Whispers followed. Some said the human was being used. Others said he was too simple to understand what was happening. A few suggested he was more dangerous than he appeared. Ethan heard none of it. He spent his off cycles in the lower habitation ring, where human gravity was standard and the food tasted almost right. He sent messages home, short and careful. He slept. He read old Earth books on history and engineering. Sarilith spent her off cycles in quiet chambers filled with memory light, reviewing records that stretched back centuries. She thought about choices, about noise, about the way so many voices tried to pull her forward instead of walking beside her. She thought about the human who never pulled at all. The next time they spoke, it was because she chose to speak. Ethan was adjusting a light spectrum panel when she approached alone. No aids. No observers close enough to listen easily. "You are efficient," she said. "It's my job," Ethan replied. "You could request reassignment," she said. "Many would." He shook his head. "This is where I'm needed." She considered that. "Do you ever wish to be needed elsewhere?" "Sometimes," he admitted, "but wanting something doesn't always mean it's right to take it." Her eyes held his. "You believe taking and choosing are different." "Yes." "How?" Ethan closed the panel and straightened. "Taking doesn't ask, choosing waits to be chosen back." The silence that followed was not empty. Sarilith felt something settle, deep and certain. She did not respond. She turned and walked away, her steps unhurried. Ethan watched her go, confused only by the intensity of her attention, not by its meaning. Neither of them knew, yet, how many eyes were now watching that quiet space between them, and neither of them spoke of it. The station continued to drift between stars, unaware that something had begun, not with words, not with force, but with silence that refused to be filled. The quiet space between Ethan Hale and Sarilith did not stay quiet for long. On Aurelian Drift, silence always invited attention. After the seating shift during the assembly, patterns began to change. Schedules adjusted by fractions of a cycle. Maintenance requests that could have been handled remotely were marked as in-person preferred. Lighting harmonics near certain chambers required fine-tuning more often than before. None of these requests carried Sarilith's name. Yet somehow they always brought Ethan closer to her. He noticed the pattern only after the third time. He stood in a corridor adjusting a gravity balance node when a fellow technician, Mara, leaned against the wall beside him. "You're popular upstairs," she said casually. Ethan did not look up. "Systems are old, they drift." "Uh-huh," she replied, "and somehow they drift mostly near one ambassador." He paused, then continued working. "Coincidence," Mara smiled. "Sure." She pushed off the wall and walked away, leaving Ethan with a faint sense of unease he could not name. He did not feel watched, not exactly, but the station felt more alert. Saralith felt it too. She sensed attention the way others sense sound. A pressure at the edge of awareness, eyes tracking her movements, minds trying to predict her next choice. This was not new. What was new was how little it mattered. In the past, attention pulled at her thoughts. It demanded response. It weighed every decision with expectation. Now something steadied her. A presence that did not ask, did not lean, did not want. Ethan Hale did not orbit her. He passed through her space like a calm current, altering nothing unless asked. That unsettled the others. Delegates began to request private audiences with her more frequently. Their words grew sharper, more carefully shaped. They spoke of alliances, future paths, shared visions. One of them, a scholar from a long-established species, leaned forward during a meeting and said, "Your continued association with the human staff member raises questions." Saralith tilted her head slightly. "Does it? It suggests preference." "Does it?" she repeated. The scholar hesitated. "Perception matters." "Only when it reflects truth," she said. He did not press further. After that, messages arrived for Ethan. At first, they were subtle. Invitations to social gatherings he had no interest in. Requests for his opinion on matters far beyond his role. Hints that advancement could come quickly if he chose the right direction. He declined all of them, politely, briefly, without explanation. His supervisor called him in. "You're doing good work," she said, folding her hands on the desk, "but you're attracting attention." "I don't mean to," Ethan replied. "I know, that's part of the problem," she sighed. "Some people think you're playing a long game. I don't play games." "That's what worries them," she leaned back. "Be careful. Perception can become reality faster than truth." Ethan nodded. "Understood." But he did not change how he moved through the station. Saralith watched him from a distance as pressure grew. She saw how others spoke around him, testing reactions. She saw how he answered honestly, even when silence would have been safer. She saw how he stepped back when conversations drifted toward advantage. Once during a crowded reception, a delegate spoke loudly near him, implying that humans were fortunate to be noticed at all. Ethan did not respond. He simply excused himself and left the room. Saralith felt something tighten in her chest. Not anger, respect. Later that cycle, she found him in a quiet observation corridor. Stars moved slowly beyond the glass. The hum of the station was distant here. "You avoid conflict," she said. "I avoid unnecessary conflict," Ethan replied. "Some would say you miss opportunities." He thought for a moment. "Some opportunities cost more than they give." She stepped closer. "And how do you know which is which?" "I don't," he said. "I just know who I want to be afterward." That answer stayed with her. Pressure reached its peak during the council convergence, a long-planned gathering where future trade routes and cooperative research efforts would be outlined. Attendance was mandatory for all major delegates. Seating arrangements were symbolic. Every placement mattered. When the final layout was released, a low murmur spread across the station. Saralith's seat was not beside any of the expected figures. It was beside a liaison console reserved for human operations oversight. Ethan saw the layout and froze. This was not an accident. He requested a correction immediately. The response came back marked denied. Reason: ambassadorial preference. He stood in the corridor, data slate in hand, heart pounding for the first time since arriving on the station. He found Saralith before the session began. "This isn't appropriate," he said quietly. "I shouldn't be there." You are already there, she replied calmly. This will cause trouble for you. It already has, she said. Yet here you are. I don't want to be used as leverage. You are not, she said. You are present. That's not the same. She looked at him, eyes steady. You once said choosing waits to be chosen back. Yes. I am choosing, she said, not to take you, not to claim you, only to sit beside you. He struggled for words. People will assume. Let them, she said softly. He lowered his gaze. If this harms your position, then my position was already fragile, she replied, and not worth keeping. The session began. They sat beside each other in silence. The chamber was filled with sound, voices layered with translation fields, tones adjusted for dozens of species. Arguments rose and fell. Proposals were offered, revised, withdrawn. Ethan focused on his console. Sarilith focused on listening. The galaxy watched. Nothing dramatic happened, and that was the most unsettling part. No declarations, no gestures, no visible alignment, just presence. Afterward, the questions intensified. Sarilith was asked directly why she had not chosen a stronger ally, why she had not explained herself, why she continued to associate with someone with no formal influence. She answered none of them. Ethan was asked if he was aware of the implications of his proximity. I am, he said. Then why remain? Because I was asked to, he replied, and because I was free to say no. That answer spread faster than any rumor. For the first time, some began to understand. Sarilith met Ethan again near the observation window where they had first crossed paths. Stars reflected softly across her skin. You could step away, she said, even now. So could you, he replied. She nodded. Yes. They stood there, not touching, not speaking. The station continued its endless drift. Far away, decisions were being made about humanity's place among the stars. Closer still, a different kind of decision was forming, one that did not need witnesses, only patience. And in the quiet between them, something held, not claimed, not demanded, chosen. The pressure did not break all at once. It pressed slowly, like gravity increasing by degrees so small that only those sensitive to balance could feel it. After the council convergence, Aurelian drift became quieter on the surface and louder underneath. Conversations stopped when certain people entered rooms. Messages were sent and unsent. Schedules changed again, not subtly this time, but deliberately. Sarilith felt the weight of it every cycle. Her species had taught her how to carry such weight, how to hold still when others pushed, how to listen beyond words. Yet this was different. This was not only about policy or future paths. This was about expectation, and expectation had sharp edges. Ethan felt it too, though he would not have named it that way. He noticed how often people paused before speaking to him now. How his access requests took longer to approve. How his presence created ripples in rooms that once ignored him. He did not enjoy it. One evening cycle, he stood alone in the human habitation ring, staring at a cup of cooling tea. He had not touched it. His thoughts kept circling the same idea. He was in the way, not because he wanted something he should not have, but because others wanted him to want it. That made him uncomfortable. When Sarilith sent a message asking to speak with him privately, he almost declined. Almost. They met in a small chamber near the station's core, where observation ports showed not stars, but the slow pulse of energy that kept Aurelian drift alive. It was a quiet place, rarely used. She stood already inside when he arrived. You are thinking of leaving, she said. He did not deny it. I don't want to cause harm. You are not the source of it. That doesn't mean I'm not part of it. She studied him the way she always did, as if listening to more than words. If you leave, would the pressure end? No, he admitted. It would just move. Then what would change? He had no answer. Silence settled between them, deep and steady. Finally, she spoke. In my culture, there is a moment called the still choice. What is it? He asked. It is the moment when one stops responding to noise, she said, and listens only to what remains when the noise grows tired. And what remains? Ethan asked. She looked at him. Truth, he swallowed. And what does your truth say? That I will not be pushed, she replied. Not toward power, not away from it, not toward you, not away from you. He let out a slow breath. People will demand an answer. Yes, she said, they already have. What will you give them? She turned toward the pulsing light beyond the glass. Not the answer they expect. The demand came sooner than Ethan thought. A formal request was issued by the council, respectful in language but firm in meaning. Saralith was asked to clarify her position regarding future alliances and personal associations that might influence them. The request was public. The implication was clear. The entire station seemed to pause. Ethan read the notice twice, then a third time. His chest felt tight. This was his fault, he thought, or at least connected to him closely enough that the difference did not matter. He went to his supervisor again. I can request transfer, he said. Immediately, she looked tired. That won't solve this. It might, he said. It would give them what they want. She shook her head. They don't know what they want, that's the problem. She leaned forward. Listen to me. Whatever happens next is bigger than you and her, but how you act still matters. He nodded slowly. Then I'll act honestly. That's all you ever do, she said softly. The day of the address arrived. Delegates gathered in the main chamber, larger than before. Observers from distant systems attended through projection fields. Even species who rarely involved themselves in council matters watched closely. Saralith stood alone at the center. No aides, no symbols of rank beyond what she carried naturally. The chamber quieted. She did not begin immediately. She let the silence stretch. Many shifted uncomfortably. Then she spoke. I have been asked to clarify my position, she said, her voice even and clear. I understand the concern behind the request. I also understand the assumptions attached to it. She paused. My species does not choose under pressure, she continued. We do not respond to demand with compliance, nor to suspicion with defense. She looked out across the gathered faces. There is an expectation that importance must be explained, she said. That choices must be justified in ways others approve of. Her gaze did not harden, it deepened. I reject that expectation. A murmur passed through the chamber. She raised one hand and it faded. I will not name alliances formed by fear of misunderstanding, she said. I will not distance myself from individuals to satisfy discomfort. She turned slightly, her eyes finding Ethan where he stood near the human liaison console. And I will not allow silence to be interpreted as weakness. Ethan felt every eye in the room shift. Saralith took one step forward. In accordance with the oldest right of my people, she said, I invoke the still choice. The chamber held its breath. I choose my liaison, she said, not by declaration, not by bond, but by presence. She walked, not toward a seat of power, not toward a council elder, but toward Ethan. She stopped beside him. She did not touch him. She did not look at him. She simply stood there. The meaning was unmistakable. The silence that followed was different from any before it. It was not empty. It was complete. No one objected. No one could, because nothing had been taken. Ethan felt the weight of the moment settle on him, not like a burden but like responsibility accepted freely. He did not move. He did not speak. He did not reach for anything. When Saralith finally looked at him, there was no question in her eyes, only recognition. The council accepted the choice, not because they understood it, but because there was nothing to challenge without revealing their own fear. Afterward, the station changed. Not quickly. Not dramatically, but steadily. Humans found themselves listened to more carefully, not because they were powerful, but because they were seen as capable of restraint, of standing beside something important without trying to own it. Other species began to study human behavior in quiet ways, not their weapons, not their expansion, but their social patience, their willingness to let meaning form slowly. Ethan's role changed. He did not gain authority, he gained trust. Saralith continued her work. She did not soften her positions. She did not harden them either. She spoke when needed and remained silent when silence carried more truth. Often, Ethan was nearby. Sometimes they spoke of small things, station systems, old Earth stories, Lume memory traditions. Sometimes they did not speak at all. That was enough. One cycle, as they stood again near the observation glass, Ethan said quietly, "You know people will talk about this for a long time." "Yes," she replied. "Does that bother you?" She considered. "No. They will talk until they grow tired. Then only what is real will remain." He smiled faintly. "You're very patient." She looked at him. "So are you." The station drifted on, carrying its agreements, its misunderstandings, and its quiet lessons between the stars. And somewhere in the vastness beyond, the galaxy adjusted its understanding of humanity. Not as conquerors, not as saviors, but as a people who knew when to speak and when to stand in silence and be chosen.